So you may have noticed that we've started talking about books on the channel and then also on the blog, and just kind of with all these book reviews we've started to think of like books that we're excited to talk about, and we just want to share a couple of those with you today. So this is going to be a little bit of a preview of what is to come, and Kay and I are going to be bouncing back and forth with books. I think we both have like 6, so it's like 12 books total, which isn't a whole lot, but just kind of giving you a glimpse into the future of what's going to happen. So I'm going to let Kay take it away first.
The first book I want to talk about is Eragon by Christopher Paolini, or however you actually pronounce that name, not really sure. Most of you know of it because it was a New York Times bestseller for an insane number of weeks. This was the first book that I really read. See, I grew up with dyslexia, and so reading was very hard for me, and I remember sitting in 5th grade classroom and we had to choose a book to read and then watch a movie and write a paper comparing the two. So naturally I was thinking if we're going for the thinnest book there was, considering I hadn't read anything over 100 pages. The two guys sitting on each side of me had different plans, we'll say. And they essentially peer pressured me into reading Eragon because we all liked fantasy genre stuff and were pretty good friends, and they wrote my name down for reading Eragon. So that's how I actually got the book, and I check out the book from the library and I'm just like, there's so many pages, it's like the thickest book I've ever seen. And I started reading it, and this was the book that got me into reading. So I can't, in all honesty, fairly judge it. Although any book that has gotten thousands of kids to read for the first time is at least worth checking out.
My first book is The Witch of Blackbird Pond by Elizabeth George Spear, and Elizabeth George Spear is also famous for writing Calico Captive and Sign of the Beaver, so there's a couple other ones that you might have heard of hers. And this is a historical fiction piece that is actually written circa 1950s, something like that. So it's a classic at this point, which I think is a good thing, and so don't let that scare you away. Her writing style is really good. Like, Elizabeth George Spear is my goal in writing, so it's just, she has beautiful prose. It's set in colonial England. You have your main character, Kit, is traveling from Barbados to live with her aunt and uncle in Connecticut, and just kind of in Barbados it's very tropical and she has a lot of independence, and then in Connecticut her family is Puritans, and so it's a little bit more structured and she actually has to kind of work for a living a little bit almost, and so just kind of like this change going on. You might be wondering, the Witch of Blackbird Pond, where does the witch part come in? Well, it is an important part in the book, and I'm not going to spoil it, so I'm just going to let you read it for yourself.
Second book I want to talk about is Rick Riordan's The Lightning Thief. Now this is the first book in the Percy Jackson and the Olympians, or yeah, Percy Jackson and the Olympians series. This was another book I accidentally got myself into. My brother had heard several good things, and he gave me money to go buy it at my school's book fair because his school wasn't having one. So I bought the book and was really bored in study hall and began to read that very first page. And from that page onward, I was hooked. So this was a book, this was a story that one way or another I was going to see to the end. And they're still kind of going. The way the author writes is particularly worth noting. It's from first person, so it's using I throughout the story, and it's humorous, and it feels very natural, like a dialogue with the reader.
Next up we have The Blue Sword, or more importantly, just Robin McKinley in general. She's one of my favorite fantasy authors. I really like most of her work. I've read a fair amount of it, so I can attest that it's pretty solid. It is, like I said, fantasy. She did write kind of in the more 1900s, 20th century range. So sometimes her work can be a little bit wordy, so kind of think like Tolkien takes a little bit to get through, but the effort is well worth it, I can assure you.
The next book I want to talk about is Radical by David Platt. It is quite a brightly colored book. It is actually a non-fiction book about living as a Christian within the context of America. Now, while I probably won't review this on writing style, etc., I do have a blog where I have gone chapter by chapter exploring what he says and summarizing the content of this book.
Here's another author that I'm hoping to talk about. It's Annabelle and Edgar Johnson, so it's a husband-wife pair. And this is one of their works, A Memory of Dragons. And in it you have a whole lot of things going on, to be honest. Your main character is Paul Killian, which is, I guess he's pictured in the middle, I'm assuming that's him. And he's asked to become a spy. In exchange for this, then he will be given treatment to help him recover 35 minutes of his memory that he dearly wants back. So you have that whole thing going on, and then what's even more interesting is that this is set into the future, except this book was written back in the 1980s, so it's technically set around today's time periods, and so you have this kind of science fiction-y, sort of, not really, kind of a dilemma going on. It's quite interesting, I can assure you. I really like this book.
The next book I want to talk about is actually a graphic novel. It is Full Metal Alchemist by Himuro Arikawa. This is my favorite original graphic novel, which includes Marvel, DC Comics, Dark Horse, etc. It is a story about two brothers and the adventure of trying to regain what they have lost, but can't really say more because it's spoiling, but it's a whole lot more than that. It is very original, has a western feel to it. The art is beautiful, and it is, in my opinion, her best work.
This one is Eddie's Blue-Winged Dragon by C.S. Adler. You've probably noticed the theme. Most of my books have been like fantasy related, kind of. This one's a tad bit more on the normal side, but it does have a little twist of fantasy in there. There is a dragon. Maybe not quite in the form you might expect it, but it's there. And this book deals with bullying and disabilities and just kind of overcoming that in general and just finding confidence in yourself as you go through those awkward years of growing up. And so it's kind of what your main character is doing, except he has cerebral palsy, which kind of makes it a little bit more difficult for him because he has trouble communicating with others and moving sometimes, and so just kind of him growing into himself.
Next book is Ranger's Apprentice by John Flanagan, and it's the first one called Ruins of Gorlon. Now this was the book that the other creator on this channel forced me, somewhat against my will, to read. She told me no uncertain terms that I was not to come back until I had at least started reading it. So I begrudgingly sat down and began to read, and finished it in 2 days. That means that you can probably guess that I like this book, and it's probably the best thing I've ever been forced to do. This book is very interesting because even though it does take place in a medieval time, it doesn't focus on someone such as a king or a knight or any of their traditional roles. It focuses on the intelligence gathering agency called Rangers, essentially the medieval FBI. If that doesn't get your attention, I don't know what will.
Second to last, we have Just Ella by Margaret Peterson Haddix. This is my favorite book of her work, which I can't really say a whole lot because I haven't actually read very much of her work, but I've read this book and I like it, and it kind of takes on the story of like Cinderella and, you know, what happened after the happily ever after. Did it actually end so happily? If you like Margaret Peterson Haddix, or if you like retellings of fairy tales, I would encourage you to check this out.
Finally, we have the book Crazy Dangerous by Andrew Colvin. Colvin has to be my newest favorite author. He writes stories often from first-person point of view, which is my favorite style of writing, but one of the things I love about his writing is he chooses a theme and he puts that theme in every single chapter of the book. This book, for instance, has the theme of do right, fear nothing. And it's so associated with the book that when you Google it, pictures of this book show up. This book in particular is about a preacher's kid who gets in with the wrong crowd, who eventually makes friends with a girl who is schizophrenic, and the dangers that unfolds. But I have to say my absolute favorite part of Andrew Cullum and its author is if you do not understand the theme of the book, you have not read the book, and that is something so rarely seen in writing today.
So my last book was Just Ella, which is kind of a retelling of a fairy tale, and my now last book is The Princess Curse by Mary Haskell, which is also a retelling of a fairy tale, except not quite so blatantly done, because there's several different fairy tales kind of combined in this one. You have the Dancing Princesses one. I can't remember if it's like 7 or 12, if there's like a specific number in there. The one where like they all dance the night away in some underground place, and they come up and their shoes are completely ruined and stuff. So you have that one. There's a little bit of Beauty and the Beast in there, and just some general Greek mythology. And then it's set in this made-up country, like in medieval Romania, which is a plus for me, I think. And so you have also, on top of all that, you have like mythology and just really good characters. I'm just really excited to talk about this one and all the other books that we've mentioned. This kind of brings us to the end of the preview section thing. So I hope you've enjoyed this little look into the future. If there's any books that you're interested about or excited to hear about, let us know in the comments. Also, if there are any books that you would like us to review, want to know our opinions on it, or just like, I like this book, do you like it too? I like books. Again, comment below. We would love to hear from you. And I just hope to see you in the future.